nobody has written a book about this, and I think I can write that book. And I felt inspired by you should always be thinking before planning, what are we trying to achieve with this plan? Other thing is, it became so much smarter in such a short period of time. So who knows what will happen in 10 years?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Innovation Roots interview series. And today we have a very interesting guest with us, Maarten Dalmijn. Hi, Maarten. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Thank you. So I would let the audiences know a little bit about yourself, Martin. So they also get familiarized with you for the uninitiated, of course. So Martin is a consultant. He's a speaker and a trainer at Dalmijn Consulting. He helps teams to beat the feature factory all over the world. And millions of the practitioners have read his best practice articles on Agile, Scrum, and Product Management. He's also written a book called Driving Value with Sprint Goals, which many of us have gone through. He also specializes in helping companies to build empowered teams that can discover better ways of delivering value. So we are really excited for this discussion with you, Martin. And to begin with, since we have spoken about your book, right? What inspired you to write this book, Driving Value with Sprint Goals?
Yeah, I think the main thing was that I was very skeptical of sprint goals. Initially, I didn't use them. And at some point, I started using them. And then I realized this is making my life as a product owner so much easier because I'm empowering the team to make better decisions. And then I realized I had read so many books that I could relate to it, where I could actually explain. I suddenly it all clicked, and I was like, wait, nobody has written a book about this, and I think I can write that book. And I felt inspired, and that's kind of like when the moment I realized, okay, I have to write this book because there is no book on sprint goals, and I felt like I was the right person to write it. Yeah, and that's kind of why I did it. The passion. That's maybe one word.
That's interesting. See, at work, we all make plans, we have iterations going on, but making plans doesn't start with planning, but the intent. What's your view on this statement?
Yes. So basically, one of the big challenges. So I read a lot of books on military history and military warfare, and I don't want to glorify military warfare in any way, but that's where they faced one of the challenges with planning, right? You might know the saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. It's a very famous saying, but actually, the same applies in software development. No plan survives contact with reality. And I think that's why you should always be thinking before planning, what are we trying to achieve with this plan? Because the plan will have to change. And unless you understand like what is the objective, that means that following the plan is the objective. You understand what I mean? So unless you decouple the two, then you can actually say, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve. This is the plan to achieve it. Oh, wait, the plan has to change. And what you very often see is that people start with the plan and then there are problems. And then yeah, what do, right? You don't have this. And intent is basically a concept of the military. It's called commander's intent. So every mission, they basically tell the people that are on the battlefield, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve, so the objective, and this is the relevant context of why it matters. And they're already doing this for hundreds of years, right? I mean, it started in the German army, so it's a very proven concept. It's still happening in Ukraine, like they're using it. And that's why you should first start like, hey, with this objective, because then the people that are on the battlefield with the boots on the ground, who have the best information, they can change the plans as necessary to meet the desired objective. And that's why you should start with intent, which is the objective and the relevant context.
Absolutely. So we were talking about sprint goals and having an intent, right? But what happens? You might have experienced such
Yeah,
situations when sprint goals are either absent or misspelled, right? So,
yeah,
what happens when something like this happens, and how can we avoid the pitfalls?
yeah. So I think the key thing is, so this is my personal experience, and also curious to hear your experience, right? But maybe because I don't know, I don't work in India so often, but what I see is most teams don't use sprint goals. So actually, the default situation is when you come in, they are not using them. And if you're lucky and they're using them, then generally they are not using them the right way. So this is the default. And I think the main question always is, you can of course jump in and start fixing sprint goals. But I never do that. I always first take a look like, hey, what's really going on? What are the problems? How can I help the team? And it might be that the best course of action is not to first fix the sprint goals, right? And that's why I think it's always really important first to see, hey, what is going on? You need to earn from the trust from the team, right? What do they care about? And then when you feel like, hey, now sprint goals are going to help, then you can talk about sprint goals. But before I talk on, I'm curious, what is your experience like in India?
So I won't represent the generic experience of Indians out here, but I
Yeah,
would share my personal experience. What I have experienced, Martin, is the inconsistency in having sprint goals. There are times that we have, and there are times that we don't have, right? And there are times that people are working on their own plans and their own objectives, and ultimately we are not achieving what is intended as we spoke. So the inconsistency is something that I personally have experienced a lot, and I'm trying to fix that. And your guidance would definitely help me there. How to keep people around motivated to have consistency in having sprint goals and working towards that.
yeah. And I think a very important thing, right? So we're talking about introducing sprint goals. I think you have different stakeholders, they care about different things. So basically, what I always tell to stakeholders is, we can work on three things at once. All three of them will be delivered later, and you won't have control over what gets delivered first. Or we can decide to work on one thing at once, you will have control, and it will be delivered sooner. So what do you want? Do you want us to have the illusion of progress, that we work on many things at once and everybody, has the feeling that we're moving forward? Or do you want to actually move faster and get what you want sooner? And the developers, right, they don't care so much about that. That's what I tend to see. So how I convince them is, so usually when people don't use sprint goals, they look at velocity or sprint completion, and it's very frustrating, right? Because almost never it happens that the team every sprint finishes 100%. So every retrospective, you're sitting there, oh, we didn't finish everything. If you use sprint goals, then all you promise is to deliver that goal. So it could be that only 60 or 50 or 70% of the sprint relates to the sprint goal. So everything above that is a bonus. It's so, and I think it's way more healthy because, yeah, we should work at a sustainable pace. So that's what the developers care about. Instead of like, we're at the retrospective, everybody's stressed, everybody is frustrated. We actually say, hey, we achieved our sprint goal. Congratulations. I think it's way more positive. So that's how I kind of involve them and say, hey, this is going to make your life better because you're going to have more flexibility instead of at the beginning of the sprint, these are 50 story points. Good luck. You have to complete them all. It's not very motivating.
Right. I'm sure you would have come across situations when you found that sprint goals are not that meaningful.
Yeah.
How do you rectify such situations? Like how do you make them meaningful?
Yeah. So I think the key thing, the challenging thing is, very often companies, somebody says, we need to deliver this feature. And then the people that do the work, they hear, oh, we need to work on, I don't know, a scheduling feature, right? And then they reverse engineer what we're trying to achieve, and it doesn't work that way. You should start the other way around. And I think that's the key thing, where I see most often go wrong. It's that the teams just hear from stakeholders, deliver these features, but then the goal is to deliver the features. But that's not a goal, because the features should make something possible, and that what the feature makes possible for the customer or the business, that should be the goal, because then you can find out. And I think that's the biggest thing, and a good way how I talk to companies, to actually talk about, hey, how does your product create value? So you've got two things. You've got creating value, which is actually you make something possible for your users, and you've got capturing value, which is money, right? And businesses usually talk about money. We deliver this feature and then we will have money. But that's not how it works. First, you need to deliver value. For example, I'm using Canva. I'm paying for it. Why am I paying for it? It's because, so Canva is a tool which you can use to design stuff, for the people, the listeners that don't know. I'm using it because it makes my life easier. I can design nice things in a few minutes. That's why I'm paying them money. And that's where you should start. And very often companies, they don't really notice. There's just somebody who says, deliver this feature. And then you're already, yeah, doomed from the start because you're going to make up stuff. And then who knows if the user actually cares.
Absolutely. So, Martin, every organization has a different environment. I
Yep,
understand
correct.
that. But according to you, any advice that you would like to give to the Scrum Masters and product owners to better understand different perspectives of the development team and the business team because they think
Yep.
differently?
So I think one of the trickiest parts in software development is working with people. I think that's the hardest part. I mean, just realize, right? This is what I always say. If you look at your family, they all have these weird things, right? They're all super nice, they're lovely, but they have their weird things. And that's just the problem. People are very complex. And I think one of the main challenges is working with these people. And what I always say is you should build relationship with people before you need those relationships. So sit with sales, try to understand what do they care about, why care, and also sales should ask developers, right? What do you care about? What do you do every day? Because then you will understand each other better. And I think it's very easy, but a lot of people don't do that. And I have one of the advantages that I worked as a marketing manager. So I worked as part of the business. I also worked as a QA and as a business analyst. So I was really part of the development team. And I think that really helps. Like, if you want to understand people, their worlds, just ask, hey, what do you do every day? What makes you happy? What bothers you? What challenges? And then you will also build a relationship because it shows that you care about them, and then you also understand them better. It's very easy, but the problem is we usually do it when there are problems, then we start talking to them, and that's the wrong approach because then there's already this distrust. They need each other from me, or they're not going to give me something. Good luck building a relationship under those conditions.
All right, that's a good advice, to understand what they care about and understand their perspective
Yeah.
by spending some time with them, maybe. So that's really
Yeah,
great,
and if I may add
Martin.
one thing, I think what I also think is really important is, so I'm always curious about how do organizations work, and I wish more people would have that. I don't think everybody has that. So what does legal do? What do they care about? Because then an organization is a system, and what makes me sad is a lot of people, they just care about, for example, they're working in development, they just care about development. But at the end of the day, organizations, they need to make money. So how do all these different departments fit in? I try to understand that. I'm not saying I have a perfect understanding, but once you have that, then you also know what do they care about. And when you want to influence them, to make a certain decision to their benefit, you can phrase it in stuff they care about. And I think, yeah, show more interest in other departments is a good advice.
All right, that's amazing. Thank you for answering these questions, Martin. We'll now move on to a very interesting round, which is going to be a rapid fire to know you, to know you a little better. So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. So, when are you most productive, Martin?
When I have a really good idea. I don't think it's a specific time. It could be at just before midnight. It could be in the morning. That it's just when something grabs me and I have to do it. Then I can really, in 1 hour, I can finish something where I'm like, normally it would take me like 8 hours. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's not a specific time.
All right. So, and then how do you start your day?
My kids wake me up. That's how I start my day. A good cup of coffee. And yeah, I read articles. I start my day with reading stuff. I love
Mhm.
reading. So that's kind of how I start my day.
All right, that's interesting. And if you want to change anything about yourself, what it would be?
I'm kind of forgetful. So I forget stuff. As a kid, I already had this. So it's just so I used to forget my jacket, when I went to tennis. I used to, when I studied German, you get this paper with German words. I would lose the paper and then I couldn't study for the test. Yeah, that's what I would change.
All right, And how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Yeah, creative, um, stubborn, and yeah, straightforward, like honest. Yeah.
That's interesting. And what scares you, Martin? Is there anything?
Yeah, AI scares me for two reasons. Because I think at the moment we have an AI bubble going on. So yeah, people. I think it's AI at the moment is it's doing amazing things. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of overrated. People act like it's smarter than it is. And the other thing is it became so much smarter in such a short period of time. So who knows what will happen in 10 years, you know? And I don't know, right? I mean, if you look at history, whenever something big happens, there always was a way, right? But I don't know. Imagine we have an AI that can write a book about sprint goals better than me. Could be at some point. And yeah, what am I going to do? I don't know yet. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the good thing is relationships, being good with dealing with people, that will always be valuable. So then I probably will, maybe I will work in sales or something. I don't know.
No, I think human experiences will never be out of uh, context.
Yeah.
So that's gonna stay forever. That's very interesting to know some for some fun things about you, Martin. Thank you for sharing those. And we have discussed a couple of things in this interview. We have spoken about what inspired you to write this book about sprint goals and what happens when we don't have them and we misspell them, and what if they are not meaningful. So thank you for sharing those insights with us. I would like to conclude this discussion, Martin, with your expert tip on creating products that truly make a difference in the world.
Yeah. So what I tend to see is we're so worried about building features or delivering stuff that we talk so much about the product and how is it going to work. But I think it's far more important that we talk to the users and the customers. How do they currently work? So not how are because if you understand what they're doing, what they're trying to achieve, that's the most important thing. And then the features, they help them with that. And I think that's the biggest tip I can give. Like, ask your Scrum team, how often do you see users or you talk to customers? How does our product deliver value? How do we know that? That's where it all begins. And yeah, it's easy to talk about features and velocity and burn down charts. It's easy to measure, but doesn't mean you're making a difference. And that's where I think most teams should start.
All right, that's amazing, Martin. Thank you for spending these amazing minutes with us, are with us for this wonderful discussion. I completely enjoyed this meaningful discussion, I would say, and I'm sure the audiences are going to enjoy this too. Thank you for spending this time with me.
Well, thank you for having me.